Hey, what's up, everybody? We got a big pump and dump here on the smaller time frames, right? Yesterday we had the big pump, and today we got the big dump. And I don't even think it's over. I think it's still gonna dump further down. But you're gonna understand why in a second when we look at theta. So when we look at theta, remember when we were down here and we were kind of in this spot, I said, yeah, it looks a little corrective. Most likely I would like to see a flat, and that's exactly what we're getting, it appears, right? So if this is a wave 1 and then you have an A, this is a B, right? And now we're coming down for a wave C. That would make a lot of sense, right? So that's what I think is happening. I think we're just forming this ABC down in here. So let me zoom out a little bit more. So yeah, so we have a wave 1, an ABC, a wave 2, and then let's start working our way back into the retracement levels. That's the bullish idea, right? The bearish idea is this is just a three-way pullback, right? You come down, three-way pullback, come down, three-way pullback, come down, three-way pullback. So are we going to come down again? Well, that could be the case, right? And then that would be, 1, 2, all of this would be 3, 4, and then 5. So that could very well be the case. So which one's it going to be? It's hard to tell you right now, but, I like this as an impulse. It looks pretty good. And I like this as a flat. So if we can, stay in this, basically if you take this whole wave and you cut it in half, that's where we should stay. We don't want to go below that. Now, a lot of times, when you get a big bottom coming in, it'll have to come all the way back down. For example, like this, we actually had to flush the low, but I think that's a bad example, but here's another one here. So if you look at this right here, we had a three-way pullback and we came pretty close to the low here. So if we translated that to here, and you had the three-way pullback, you're looking at right about there, which is, what price is that? That is about 62 cents. So we're pretty close. So Bitcoin dominance is moving back up. You could see we had this three-wave pullback, and now it's pumping again. So a lot of times too, when you get a bullish Monday, which yesterday was kind of bullish, it was definitely volatile, right? We have the bill passed, so that should be interesting. But usually when you get a bearish or a bullish Monday, it kind of sets a bearish tone for sometimes the whole week, right? Versus where you get a bearish Sunday, a bearish Monday, a flat Tuesday, a pump Wednesday, and a big pump for Thursday, right? That's usually kind of gives us the sign that we have a bullish week. But this week, I think it's going to be very corrective. I don't think, after this big dump, I don't think there's anything, unless this comes out and it starts to rampage back up, which is totally possible. But I just don't think we're going to get anything significant this week because, again, when you go back to XRP, right? XRP, we were right at the cusp of breaking this here. And now what happened is it put us at risk. We broke it, but then look at that wick. That is a nasty wick, right? So a total rejection right there. So now the issue is, are we back in the descending triangle, right? So now we have to deal with this again because we're back in the descending triangle. Remember, we broke above it yesterday right there. We had broken out, Let's go to the daily here. Right? So if you look at it from a daily perspective and you ignore the wicks, we still have broken out, right? We're still, we broke out of it and now we're coming down to back test it, right? On the smaller time frames, if you want to be more conservative with it, you can say that we still haven't broken out of it, right? You could see we broke out of it and then came right back in it. So here's the descending triangle. So that's a big problem if we can't get out of there, right? Because the big concern is if this volatility starts slowing down, we're going to get a big crash. Unless we get out of here. I mean, this is it right here. It comes down for the next couple of weeks. Are we going to make it or break it? I mean, it's right here at the verge of, so there's so much chop, right? You go up, you come down, 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 right? It's just this chop. So until that changes, right, either down or up, we have to assume that that's what we're just going to continue to get. Now, I still think it's very bullish. I'm still very bullish on the macro because, again, the macro is, I think, very bullish. Looking at that 10-day candle, you can see that's a nice looking candle right there. It's a bullish hammer candle. Now, this candle right here don't look too good, but we still have, 80% left in that candle. But let's go to the weekly here. Weekly still looks okay. We're kind of in reaccumulation if you think about it, right? So if this is like a rise, a crash, a retrace, reaccumulation, now we're going sideways, right? So once that finishes, we want to see it continue pushing to the upside because, again, the macro is still very bullish, right? We're still at the cusp of a monumental move in XRP's history, right? Like never before. And it's just essentially a waiting game, and it's essentially kind of like what happened over here, right? So we're kind of paused out in here. Same thing here, we're paused out. But I would actually argue that this is more bullish than this, because this was like a triangle here, right? Boom, boom. Where this is more of a flag. You can see how it's flagging down. So to me, impulse up, flagging down, cocking back like a loaded gun. Let's go. So the only thing is, how big does this flag have to get? Because again, if we did have to break, all we need to do really is stay above 210. If we could stay above 210, if we break this wick, that's not going to be good, right? So then what would the count be? Well, you would have basically A, B, and then C, right? And then go up. So the difference is, this is the difference here, right? So which one? Those are the two main ideas. Which one's it going to be? I don't know, right? We have to wait and see. Now, let's go to Bitcoin here. Now, if we look at Bitcoin for a minute, we could see that, Bitcoin got hit pretty damn hard. I mean, that's a pretty fat candle right there. So we have, but with all fairness, right? We started from way down here. So we went from here all the way up, right? So that's a long ways up from coming down here. So where was that? That was from 98,000. We went from 98,000 all the way up to 108,000. That's a $10,000 move. That's 10%, 10.5%. So, Bitcoin moved up 10%. You would think you would get a correction. That's what we're getting, right? So let's look at this here. So it still looks really good because, again, we have this A, B, C. The big question is, does it get more complex? Right? So the standard way to look at it is there's your ABC. We have a big impulse to the upside. That's a wave 1. And then we have an A, B, C. Right? Maybe C's not finished. Maybe C's got to come further down. There's your 2. And then we go up for our 3, 4, and 5. Right? So that's what we're waiting for. So the alternative to that would be a more complex correction. So you would have 3 waves down, and this would be like 3 waves up, and then you would get maybe 5 down and then go up, or it could be 3. It just depends. So that would turn into a much bigger correction. So it would look something like that, something definitely bigger. And it very well could be, because if you take this whole wave and you cut it in half, that's about right there at 94K. So that's, let's take a fib also. If we take a fib and we go all the way up, and I don't know if we're on log scale. I think we are. We go there, and I almost had the 50%. I was a little bit off. I'll put it down a little bit further. So there we go. There's your 50% line right there. So as long as Bitcoin stays above that, it still has to be looked at as bullish, because you have this impulse, right? And then it's all about impulses and corrections. What is the correction correcting? It's correcting this impulse, right? After it's done correcting, then you should get a reaction out of it, right? So we just don't know. 3 down, right? 3 up. Let me do that again. So you got 3 down, you got 3 up, and then maybe 5 down, like that, and it becomes a bigger ABC. So that would mean having to dump another, 10%, 11%. That's a lot. So if Bitcoin had to come down 10, 11%, just imagine what XRP would have to go through, right? So this would be a bad situation. It would probably mean that we would come down here, right? Maybe make a triple bottom here. I don't know. That's a tough one, right? So, but to me, if it is going to move down, then this would be like a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or a 5-wave move, a 3-wave pullback, right? So there's an A. You just had your B, right? And then if Bitcoin had to come down, then you would have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down for a C, right? And then what that would be is 3 waves up, 3 waves down, and then you would go up very fast in 5. So that could be what's playing out right now. It's really, really, really hard when you have chop, 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 right? So there's nothing trending. It's all in a correction. Corrections are much harder than obvious trends, right? So, but again, we can't, just because that's the case, we can't lose sight of the bullishness that we still have, right? So, we'll see how it all plays out. But right now you can kind of see, Bitcoin does look bearish. up here on the 5-day chart, because you don't have that three-way pullback like you do on the smaller time frames, right? So it could be that, you know, this is coming up into distribution. So if I flip it upside down, you know, it's pretty scary, to be honest. You know, if this was actually going down, I would actually start getting bullish, right? Because of how crazy this wave is. So, you know, that's why I'm saying I just don't think we have a lot left. And if we don't have a lot left, then how the hell does, you know, Theta or anything else even have a chance? That's why I think the altcoins, this is the biggest bear market in altcoin history, and it's still here, right? But when we look at something like AVAX or something normal, right? You still have this impulse up. You have a correction down. You have an impulse up. You have a correction down, right? So you have an impulse and a correction. So to me, once this finishes, you just have to come back up here. It just doesn't make sense for it to keep coming down unless this is a 1-2. And now we're in the middle of the third wave. But if we're in the middle of the third wave, I expect more downside. And then a wave 4, and then a wave 5. And then that's your 1, A, B, C, 2, and then we go up. That's super bearish, short term. So for Ethereum, you know, we have that three-way pop. We have that impulse to the upside. You know, what else can you say here except, you know, this to me looks like a flat. It still looks good, right? Now, is this going to turn into 3 back up and then 5 down and then go up? It's something bigger, something more complex. It could very well be, right? So nothing too out of the ordinary. Again, like Polygon, all you have is a 3-wave pump, 3 waves, right? So 3 waves, dump, 3 waves, you know, 3 waves, dump, right? Dump, 3 waves, dump, right? So you need a real 5-wave move and a pullback to get that going. That's what you want to see, right? Until we get that, we have to assume it's going to keep going down. hbar, you know, hbar is interesting. You know, you got this double bottom here. And that's why I look at a lot of assets to see exactly, you know, how, you know, if we break this low, what does it mean, right? So this is still a flat, and this could be a double bottom, right? So to me, you would have to go up. It just doesn't make sense for it to keep coming down unless this whole thing is an impulse, meaning 1 or actually it'd be 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we crash down for 3, 4, and 5. That's the only way we crash, is if it's in a massive move down. But more than likely, you know, if Bitcoin does get that C wave, I can't see any alternative than taking that low out. But then it can still turn into a flat, meaning A, and this comes down for B, it breaks the low, and then we go up into C, and then there's your 3-wave move. So you would have 3 waves down, and then you would have 3 waves up, and then you would have to go back down in 5 in order to go up, and then it's a big ass ABC, right? So, you know, it's definitely a head scratcher. Definitely do not like summer crypto. Summer crypto is by far the hardest, right? It's very difficult in the summertime because it's so wishy-washy, you know. There's you know, you have the right wave structure, but then you get something out of left field, you know. It's interesting. So I was really hoping that we could have broke out of here and that we could have been up here. Not like way up here, but at least, you know, in this zone up here. That was really the hope, is to get up there and sustain it. But what happened was, you can see all XRP did was a 3-wave move, and it got rejected. So if that's 3 waves, you could see 3 waves there, you could see 3 waves there, you could see 3 waves there. Now you're going to get another 3 down. So, you know, this is just like a day trader's paradise, right? This is terrible for investing, for, well, doesn't matter for investing, it's long term anyway, but it's terrible for swing trades and, you know, investing short term. But it's really, really, really good for day trading, because, you know, you're going up, then straight down, right? So other than that, I think that's it. You know, like, here's one I need to show, like dog. Dog looks to me like, if this is going to shape out into an ABC and then go up, right? That would be the best case scenario. See, this is what we want to see from Theta. This is what we want to see from XRP, right? Let's get a move like that. And where did that move come? In the spring, right? Now we're in the summer. So maybe we have to correct down all summer until we get to October, November, December, and then we can start going up. That's definitely a possibility, right? So, yeah, so you have this impulse, ABC. You have an impulse. Do we get an ABC? Or is this the ABC and this is a wave 1? You're going to flag out for a wave 2 and then keep moving. That's a possibility, right? I wish I had more answers for us today, but yeah, it's a tough one. So what I will say is, once Bitcoin decides what it's going to do, then we can sort of figure out what the rest of the market's going to do, because right here it's a very bad situation. See, we don't want, see, I would much rather, so there's your flat right there, there's your flat right there, right? And then what Bitcoin did is it came all the way up and it broke above it, and then it 3-waved. I don't like that. I don't like that. You can say, why? That's better. No, it's not. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to come up, don't break the high, then 3-wave back, then break out. Because if you break the high, you can say, well, why is that bad? Well, because you tapped into the liquidity that's up here. And if the price isn't continuing to pump, then people sell into that liquidity and then they crash the price, right? So that's why Bitcoin is correcting, because it came way down here. It's pumping, right? So then what happened? It ran out of momentum, but it broke the high. So for all we know, this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So you have A, B, C. There's your flat, right? And then you have another A, B. See how it broke the low right there? Which is actually the same as breaking the high, right? And then it went all the way up. So this is 3 waves down. This is 3 waves up. Now the question is this going to be like a 1, 2, 1, 2? And then we're going to crash down here for a 3, 4, and 5. And this becomes A, B, C, right? It becomes something like that. And then we go up, just like how it worked out over here. You can see the same thing, right? A, B, C. So basically, we are right here, for Bitcoin right now. So we still have to drop and then go up. That's the bearish case. Now let's take a fractal here.